Boxing truth here. Let me talk about this Adonis Stevenson situation. Stevenson's in the headlines. He's actually considering fighting a live opponent. I totally forgot about the Eleider Alvarez long overdue mandatory. When it comes to Stevenson, I forget a lot of things about him. I forgot the last time he fought. I forgot it was against Fanfara, a very unwarranted rematch at the time. It wasn't an attractive fight, a fight no one talked about. Stevenson made easy work of him this time around because Fanfara has been knocked out. Not the fighter he was prior when he fought Stevenson the first time. Much more confident, more formidable. He's been knocked out, and mentally he's just done. So when it comes to Stevenson's career, you forget a lot of shit because the guy is irrelevant when it comes to activity, the type of opponents he fights, and every time he fights, it just doesn't really interest you all that much. He doesn't fight anybody legit. And then news came out about Badou Jack. Badou Jack wants to fight, willing to go to Canada. Perhaps they can do a mini unification with the belt. It's very possible. Jack could get a special permit from the WBA. And of course the WC will work with you. I mean, they've delayed this mandatory for 2 years, but it's not on Stevenson's dime, not fully. Stevenson shouldn't take all the blame for this. He only paid step aside money once to Eleider Alvarez, so it's not like Stevenson's been paying money to Alvarez for 2 years. No, it's been mostly Alvarez's doing on why this fight hasn't happened. He hasn't enforced his position. He's allowed himself to wait for his shot, even though he's been mandated as the official mandatory to Stevenson's strap since November of 2015 when he beat Isaac Chilemba in an elimination bout, final eliminator, I believe. So he's been installed as a mandatory since late 2015. So all this time he could have been enforced his position as mandatory and decided not to. And you can see by his schedule of fights after the Chilemba fight, which was debatable. The fight was too boring for me to actually sit down and score it accurately. So I'm not really sure who won that fight just by watching it without scoring. It was a close fight. Alvarez came away with the victory, and he's been mandatory ever since. But Alvarez hasn't jumped up at his opportunity. He didn't fight for a long ass time after the Chilemba fight. Then he takes two stay busy fights, pretty much showing that he's not confident going into a mandated fight with Stevenson, considering the opposition he fought after the Chilemba fight. He took 2 bum fights in a row in 2016 against unheralded opponents. Just stay busy fight, stay sharp, and that was the plan for his promoter, which Stevenson also has the same promoter. That was the plan, to sharpen up Alvarez, because his team and his promoter felt he wasn't ready for the shot against Stevenson, wasn't as primed as he could be. So they sharpened him up in 2 bum fights late 2016 with the plan to put the fight in April of this year. But then Stevenson decided to step him aside. He agreed, he had an agreement with Alvarez to step aside in order to fight Fanfara in a rematch. Or at first, Stevenson was going to fight Sean Monaghan in Long Island, and what would have been a lucrative opportunity for Stevenson. He was right in saying Alvarez doesn't bring shit to the table, because he wanted to fight Sean Monaghan at first, which would have been a decent fight for Stevenson in terms of the revenue generated for the fight. It would have made sense for Stevenson to defend his title in Long Island against Sean Monaghan. But then that fight was scrapped for whatever reason. It didn't go down. And then he ends up fighting Fanfara. But the thing is, he already agreed to a deal with Alvarez prior to Stevenson's last fight being finalized. So when the Monaghan fight didn't go through, Alvarez already agreed to step aside. So Stevenson had to fight somebody else. He ends up fighting Fanfara again. The rematch, he makes easy work of him. And now Alvarez, who's been waiting for 2 years, but only really decided to enforce the mandatory until this year. He could have been fought Stevenson last year, decided to take 2 tune-up fights. The thing is, Alvarez ain't shit. He ain't that good. He's not elite. This dude was getting beat by a chop-worn, faded Lushan Butte before he landed a big punch to knock him out. This is a guy that got rocked numerous times in the fight against Prieto not too long ago. He ain't that good. He's pretty basic. He's strong. He's got some decent talent, but he ain't that good. Stevenson beats this chump. It's not even a fight people are clamoring for. It's a decent fight. It's not a bad fight. But if Badou Jack is out there waiting in the wings, if he's willing to step up and go to Canada, that's a much more lucrative fight there. Much more recognized name. A guy that has done a lot more in his career, has won world titles, has beaten a world-class opposition, much better opposition compared to Eleider Alvarez. Badou Jack is really the unified super middleweight champion who's moving up in weight to challenge one of the top guys at light heavyweight. And he just beat a guy with a strap, a world-class fighter in Nathan Cleverly, destroyed him. And he's looking to continue his run in the light heavyweight division immediately. He's not waiting to stay sharp. He's not taking stay busy fights, tune-up fights like Eleider Alvarez did last year. He's going right after the big fish. He wants Adonis Stevenson next in December. And if I'm Stevenson's team, let's take that fight. That's a much more recognized fight. A fight that will get Stevenson some much more he much needed respect he needs in his career. And if he beats Badou Jack, he gets complete props. A lot of people will pick Badou Jack to beat Stevenson. Some people see it as a 50-50 fight. Some people see Stevenson as only a slight favorite because of his body of work at 175 compared to Badou Jack. But that's a bigger fight, a better fight, and it's a fight Stevenson should take if he can work a deal with the WC again in order to step beside Alvarez one more time. Since this is a technically unification bout, if Badou Jack can get permission from the WBA to put his strap on the line against Stevenson, then the WC shouldn't have any problem sanctioning this fight. But of course, they'll put it in writing with the promise the winner has to fight Alvarez next. No problem. But this is the fight I want to see. I don't give a shit about Alvarez. He could have fought Stevenson last year. He ain't much anyways. Just an average fighter who struggled with a chop-worn Lushan Butte. He doesn't beat Stevenson anyway, in my opinion. Chin ain't strong enough. Defense ain't good enough. Speed ain't good enough. His power ain't good enough. So what's the point? Let's see a bigger fight. Let's see a better fight in my eyes. Let's see Adonis Stevenson versus Badou Jack. But y'all let me know what y'all think. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.